Obviously, I'm a Yankees fan, so I'd love to see him.
It's almost like legacy of like the NFL versus.
But I definitely think that Baker could be a really good player for the Panthers moving forward.
Did I say Oreos?
There's a lot of questions I have about Mahomes. Looks like a kid playing Madden.
Turning point in the game is the 13-second drive.
They play very hard, even though they're terrible.
He's a good pick. You for sure. He's going to be a good player. But I can't argue against the Jamar Chase pick.
They made moves saying we're going to win this year, at least get into the playoffs.
I'm going with my guy, Corey Seager. So glad.
What's good, y'all? My name is Austin Jarman, and I play rugby for the University of Notre Dame. And you're listening to the Outsider's Opinion with Austin and Kevin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our MLB Opinions of the Week. I'm Kevin, and I am joined by the man that catches my opinions, Austin.
I do catch your opinions, you catch mine, and I'm excited to see how many NL teams versus AL teams you have. It's top 10 World Series contenders. What teams do we think have the best chance of winning the World Series this year to this point in the season? I would say mine's a little bit swayed towards one side, but I'll let us get into it before I delve too much.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued with your list too, and it's something I've just been thinking about because to me, no team really separated themselves at the trade deadline. But yeah, my number one team is the Braves. To me, just the Braves playoff rotation. I think they have the best. They're getting a lot of guys healthy back for their starting rotation, and I trust their bullpen, and I also like their lineup. They're probably the most complete team out of this list. I think there are weaknesses for the other teams past them.
Every team has a weakness, and I do think that the Braves could struggle if major injuries happen, like we've seen before with other teams. But luckily, they are a deep team, and they have a lot less holes than a lot of other teams out there. One of their holes, I would say, since I already mentioned that they have some holes. I mean, Marcell Ozuna, who's played their most games at DH, has really struggled this season, and they're probably going to need someone to come in. But that's why, I mean, Travis d'Arnaud and Sean Murphy, both catchers, have been hitting better than Marcell Ozuna. So they do, like I say, have depth.
Yeah. So who's your number one team?
My number one is also the Braves. They definitely have the least amount of worry in my mind for consistency, but the fact that they only have 4 starters that are eligible for, or 3 starters eligible for like league rankings, meaning that they played enough games. They have suffered a lot of injuries, and they don't really have another starter. Like, they have a lot of guys that have only started 5 games or because of injuries. Soroka's come back, but he's struggled since coming back, which should be expected since he was out for so long. Max Fried is on the 60-day out IL. They don't really have a 4th or 5th starter at the moment, which is a problem.
Yeah, and I'm thinking with playoffs, they do need someone. They don't want any of their big guys to get hurt, and they just need some guys that can pop in 4 to 5 throughout the series in the playoffs. But I feel they have a good top 3.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, they're very, very suspect to, like, one injury could really derail them because they only have 3 true starters. An injury to one of those guys means come playoff time, they're really, really thin in the starting pitcher department.
Yeah, it's a good point. So now my 2 to me is the Astros. I'm going off history, and this is a very similar roster. They're not leading their division, I think, just because the Rangers had a hot start, and also they've dealt with a lot of injuries throughout the year. They seem to be getting healthy now, and they just did get Verlander back, which really helps their starting pitching, which really hasn't done well for them outside of Framber Valdez. And now you get Verlander, and we'll just have to see who that third guy is for their pitching. Maybe Hunter Brown. Christian Javier has not done as well. And and nothing, but they do have some good players in the bullpen, and it just really isn't worked out for guys that they thought before the year.
Yeah, my number 2 is the LA Dodgers. The Dodgers are a team that has a lot of great hitters. Jason Hayward is coming into his own this season after a lot of forgettable years with Chicago ever since he got his last Gold Glove in 2017. He's really struggled, but this year he's played amazing hitting with a 117 OPS plus. They also have JD Martinez, Mookie, obviously, Freddie, and Will Smith all hitting well. Muncie's back and he's hitting well as well. But the problem really stems with them is their starting pitching. Without Kershaw, they don't have a dominant starter. But if they can get Kershaw back, which I believe they will, they have another top 10 starter. And I'm confident in their bullpen. They have Evan Phillips with a 2.21 ERA, Brusdar Gratterall with a 1.76. They have Caleb Ferguson with a 2.83. They have a lot of guys that are great in that bullpen. And I'm confident coming in and being shutdown players.
Okay, you're higher on the Dodgers than me. I'm not as high on them.
Bullpen matters a lot when you get to the postseason.
Yeah.
Having 3 guys below a 3-year ERA that have played a lot of innings, along with probably the best starter of our generation. I think Kershaw, still with a 2.55 ERA this year, was definitely in the Cy Young conversation before he kind of tweaked something, and I bet they're kind of just saving him for the playoffs. He's still that dominant starter that I would not want to face come playoff time.
That's true. I'm really looking for a guy past Kershaw. There's no one really. Kershaw is 2.55, but there's no one under 3 in that starting rotation. The lowest ERA is Tony Gonsolin with 4.11.
Yeah, it's still above league average if you look over to the right. 108 ERA plus. It's not great, but I believe guys in Julio Urias, who's having a bad year right now, but has historically last year was 3rd in the Cy Young. He's just having an off year. The year before that, he was 7th in the Cy Young. The past 2 years before, Urias was a dominant starter. So I'm confident that he can come back into it. I mean, we've seen him throw the last out of a World Series before. He is a great pitcher, and I just think he's had some off nights.
That's true, and we'll just have to see. I think really once I get past the second team, once I get past the Brave and Astros, to me it's kind of the teams have pluses, but they also have some holes as well. So who's your third team?
My third team is the Rays. The Rays, as long as they can stay healthy, which has always been the Rays' problem, they consistently have guys get hurt when they need a big moment. But of their 9 batters, besides their catcher, which is not a spot where you usually have great hitters, everyone else is 107 plus in OPS plus. They have an entire team of great hitters and guys that have hit a lot of home runs and scored a lot of runs. They're one of the best offenses. They have the best shortstop in the league, in my opinion, along with some great pitching. And Drew Rasmussen being out for the season really hurts, but their relief pitching is second best in the league, in my opinion, only behind the Yankees. 1.8 ERA by Pete Fairbanks, 3.23 by Kevin Kelly, Jason Adams at a 2.51, Colin Poche is at 2.56, and Jake Diekman at 2.35. The best of the contending teams with the bullpen, and everyone is shut down. They also have a guy by the name of Sean Armstrong, who's thrown 27 innings, 18 games, only 3 starts, 0.67 ERA. It's just everybody in their bullpen is shut down.
Yeah, I like their pitching, and they're my 3 as well. It's just I'm worried about they're a great regular season team. Playoffs, I think they kind of missed that experience, but they do have some veteran guys. I'm looking at the 2020 roster. Yandy Diaz was there, Randy Arozarena, Brandon Lowe, but really no one else. Willie Adames, Joey Wendell, Hunter Renfroe, and then I look at their pitching. It was their lineup was Tyler Glasnow, or that's Tyler Glasnow. They have Blake Snell, and I can't really think of anyone else. It's just lack of experience for me with this team, but they are really good, as you mentioned. I just don't know how Wander Franco is going to do in the playoffs, um, and just the other side of their lineup.
Well, I'm not worried in Franco at all. In the ALDS versus Boston, he hit 368. For his playoff career, he hits 286. I know he struggled in the wild card game against Cleveland last year, the wild card games, but everyone in that series couldn't hit. There was not one person who hit well. So I'm not worried about Wander at all.
Okay. I'm just thinking when it gets to the World Series, what's going to happen to them, and will they lose steam? That's my problem. Even though, like you said, they're a really good team. It's just with the Rays, I'm not sure how well experienced this team is for the playoffs.
Yeah, that's understandable.
And now the fourth team I have, I think you're going to be pretty shocked with who I have here, and that's the Milwaukee Brewers.
Okay.
And my thoughts with the Brewers is I think they could kind of go on a run because they're a half game out of the division lead. But to me, it's really their starting pitching. And they have Adames, but he's only hitting 204. But it looks like Yelich is starting to hit better. William Contreras is a good hitter, and he was with the Braves. And but to me, it's really I trust in their relief pitching. Corbin Burns is starting to get better, and I just trust in their rotation and keeping a low score, and they can get just enough hits for them to go on a nice run.
Yeah. We'll get to the. I'll talk about the Brewers when I get to them in mind. My number 4 is the Astros. Problem with Houston is of guys that have played 70 games, they have two who have an OPS plus above 92, which is 8% worse than average. They don't have hitters. They are hitting horrible this year. If Jordan, and he's only played 63 games, so he's not included on this, Jordan is really carrying them when he's in the games, especially Kyle Tucker, who's played 107 games. Alex Bregman, who's played 108. They are the two guys, Bregman and Tucker, that are consistently hitting well. I mean, you just look at guys like Jose Abreu, 80 OPS plus. That's 20% worse than average. 20%. This isn't, and Jose Abreu's hitting 241. So even if you want to look at just the averages, he's not hitting well. Jeremy Pena, 84 OPS plus with a 239 batting average. These players that were big in the postseason are not playing well. And then they're starting pitching. They've had injuries. That it really does suck to see a guy like what we've seen with their injuries thus far. Jose Urquidy is supposed to be back, I believe, soon. I saw that he was starting to come back, I think. And then obviously Luis Garcia being out also really hurts their chances for me because he was supposed to be their go-to guy with Valdez. And that was part of the reason why they could afford letting go of Verlander. And now they have to bring him back because Luis Garcia has to get Tommy John. So some of their best starters from last year that pitched amazing in the postseason are out. And I mean, it's going to be a struggle for them if they run into any other injuries. I do like their bullpen. Hector Neris is a great pitcher. Same thing with Brian Abreu. Presley struggled this year, but he's still very good. And obviously, I think Valdez and Garrett Cole are two AL Cy Young candidates at the moment. Right now, I have Cole a little bit higher than Valdez because Valdez had a real struggle fest before this last no-hitter he just threw. But Verlander is a big part, but again, they have to start hitting the ball. They have really, really struggled hitting wise.
Yeah, and I think it's just some of the injuries. I think Altuve really just hasn't gotten the rhythm, and that's my thing. And I think they were expecting a lot from Lance McCullers, but he is injured. and that's something. So my next team is the Baltimore Orioles because they have great relief pitching. It's incredible what they have. My only downside, and I like their lineup, you have some really good hitters, and you got Ryan O'Hearn hitting above 306, and then you have Rushman. It's just to me those starters and their top. When I look at their best pitcher, it's Tyler Wells. Well, no, it's Kyle Bradish, and he's at 3.32. They just got Jack Flaherty, but I thought they could have gotten someone better. But once you get to their um, bullpen, if they can just get a lead and their starters don't mess it up, they can be dangerous. They got Felix Bautista, Yanier Cano, just a great bullpen. It's just what can they do to get to their bullpen with a lead?
Yeah, I understand that. We're on number 5, correct?
Yes.
My number 5 is the San Francisco Giants. The Giants are a team that I believe has 2 ace-level starters when they're on. I know Logan Webb has struggled a little bit in recent games, but he's still a great starter. And Alex Cobb is having a great season. But what makes me fall in love with this team, again, is their bullpen. Camilo Duvall, 2.52. Tyler Rogers, 2.43. Taylor Rogers, 2.65. Tristan Beck, 2.94. Scott Alexander, 3.13. One of the best bullpens in the league as well. And then they also have a more spread out hitting game. Jock Peterson, 119 OPS plus. You have Lamont Wade Jr. with a 126 OPS plus. I really like what this team has done. Wilmer Flores is hitting exceptionally well with a 144 OPS plus, a 905 OPS, and a 305 batting average in 79 games.
That's a good point. We'll talk about the Giants later for me. My next team is the LA Dodgers. I just don't really, to me, they do have some guys in Mookie, Freeman. It's just outside of Kershaw, what do they have? And can Kershaw stay healthy? But they're a team that could soar up closer to the year, and I could change my predictions on them, but I'm just not really high on them this year.
Yeah, I think they're. I think you may be underestimating them a little bit. I just don't see that with the Astros, for example. I don't see where the hitting is coming from at the moment, especially besides those 3 guys I mentioned: Bregman, Tucker, and Jordan.
I'm also kind of giving just some. The Astros just won it last year, and to me that gives them a little bit of a touch up, and just because they did it last year, and I think they can definitely go far again.
The Dodgers have a lot of guys who've done it before. They have JD Martinez and Mookie Betts, who both won it with Boston, but also you have Freddie, who won it with the Astros. Mookie also won it with the Dodgers. I mean, a lot of their players have been on championship level teams.
They have, but it's just not last year.
I don't know if that means that much when they've been consistently great. They've been to, in the last 7 years, they've been to 3 World Series.
True, but look about that with the Astros. Even after the 20, they've been to it 2021, 2022, and then they're in 2023 now. And so that just gives me, that's what I'm just placing more faith in the Astros because of that. But I could see the Dodgers doing it. I just really don't like their roster this year with their shortstop and second baseman.
Well, I think also a problem with the Astros, if we want to go back to this, a lot of their players aren't guys that were on the team. Their major starters weren't guys. Jose Abreu, Marcio Dubon, Corey Julks, Jake Myers. These are not guys that you scream World Series champions.
Well, it's just because Altuve's been injured, Jordan, and so those are the 2 guys where I think they're going to start heating up at the right time.
It takes more than 2 guys.
well, then you got Kyle Tucker, and then Chaz McCormick is starting to do well. So you and I seem to be on. We just the Dodgers for me are what you I think similar to what you think of the Astros. What you think of the Dodgers is similar to what I think of the Astros.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, who's your next team?
My sixth team is the Orioles, another team with a very, very, very dominant relief pitching. The problem is their starting pitching is much worse than most of the teams I've mentioned. They do have some of the best hitters in the league. You mentioned Ryan O'Hearn, who's hitting 306. Another guy I want to shed light to is Austin Hayes. He's playing very well. Same with Gunnar Henderson. They just have a great playing roster, starting players, and as long as Cedric Mullins can come back, he's out for 10 days, but he should come back. And then I really like their chances. The playoffs, at least recently, have been very high scoring in most series, and if they can put up a lot of runs, they will win a lot of games.
Yeah, my only real problem with them is starting pitching. But my next team for 7 is the Philadelphia Phillies. I wanted to put them higher just because they were there last year, but the ERAs for this year do not look good, and Schwarber to me has not played well, and that's just kind of put them lower. But I could see him going on a run similar to last year.
Yeah, the Phillies did not make my list, so
Okay.
I Trey Turner's having one of the worst seasons of his career, and I know they made it last year, but the playoffs are such of a fluky thing sometimes, and they got really, really hot at the right time. And I don't necessarily see them as a team that I'm extremely, extremely scared of in the NL when there's so many other contenders that I think are just better than them. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, I agree with that. Once after the Dodgers, I'm not really scared of these other teams. I can see it happening for all these other teams.
You can't see the Giants.
No, Giants aren't on my list. I don't.
They have the same amount of wins as the Dodgers.
Well, I'm not a huge fan of the Dodgers either. I just don't believe in both those teams when it comes down to the deep playoffs. Because with the Dodgers, I'm not a huge fan of the roster construction. With the Giants, to me, it's just kind of a fluky year, and I'm just not sure if they can do it again with the in the playoffs. Even though, like you mentioned, there are they got some good starters, but to me, I just don't know if they're going to be able to pull it out in the playoffs.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it's a fluky year. So
was your 7 the Phillies?
Yes.
Okay. My 7 are the Rangers. I really do think that offense will be a major part in the playoffs. That's why I have Orioles and Rangers, 2 teams that do struggle on the pitching side more than the hitting side. The one thing that does worry me is the fact that Corey Seager has gone down twice with injuries this year. Can he stay healthy for the whole year? We will see. Injuries have really plagued this season. While he has hit amazing, it doesn't matter if you're not in the lineup. The Evaldi injury, as you mentioned, he may not come back, and if he does not, that is massive. I don't trust their bullpen at all, besides maybe Will Smith and Brock Burke a little bit. I know Chapman has pitched well. He's a 3 ERA this year, or a 3 ERA with the Rangers, my bad. He has a 2.58 ERA this year. He just can become wild in the playoffs. I've watched it multiple times. His playoff ERA is 4.5, I believe, and I never was confident of him coming in those games. So, while I do love their hitting side, and I there's no holes when they are hitting, the holes pitching do concern me.
Yeah, there is apparently some good news of Valdi. He's supposed to come off the IL, and Bochy said he should come up, but we'll just have to see it when we see it. Their offense has struggled till the later on the White Sox series recently, so that gives me better. But yeah, like you said, it's a relief role for me, and the teams, even though Philadelphia really doesn't have good relief role, but the Dodgers, Orioles, all the other teams have better relief pitchers, and when it matters, that's why I think it's going to really come and bite the Rangers I trust Chapman and Will Smith, but I think it's 70%. I don't really, there's no one that puts me at ease when they go pitching in the bullpen. Um, Burke, I'm just not sure of. Spores has done well recently, but I'm not a huge fan of him. So that's my only problem with the Rangers, and that's why they're so low. I hope they can prove me wrong, but that's something I think they focus on next year.
Yeah. I was actually wrong about Chapman. Chapman's ERA is really good in the playoffs. I forgot. It's when he gets past the ALDS or the division series that his ERA goes to 4.5. So
Yeah,
it's those deep playoff moments that I just don't trust him. I remember Houston, obviously in the ALCS, both times, 2017 and 2019, he had a 6.75 ERA. And then he also struggled notably in the World Series with Chicago. So I don't necessarily trust him in those deep moments. My number 8 team is the Brewers. You mentioned them earlier, and I do have them a little bit lower, but I think the best relief pitcher, maybe the most underrated relief pitcher. I won't say the best because I think the best relief pitcher in baseball currently is Felix Bautista. But I would put Devin Williams right up there with him. And I think he doesn't get a lot of praise because he doesn't throw as hard. He's not as big. But Devin Williams is a monster when he's on the mound. And having a guy at the end of your bullpen that is so devastating is huge. I mean, just to put this out there, Devin Williams' career ERA is under 2, 1.92.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And then one more thing on the Rangers was I do think they have experience. You have Bochy, you have Seager, you do have Chapman, but you also have Will Smith. That's something that kind of does make me feel comfort
I don't
because
think they have all that much experience.
Whoa, you have a guy that's won a World Series MVP. You got a guy
won.
that's won 3 World Series in coaching you. You've had a guy that pitched in the World Series. So that's one thing, but the other side of the lineup is inexperienced.
The majority of it,
the majority,
80%, 80, 85%.
But I
don't have.
There's something I do like having Seager, but you did mention health. So that's one thing about the Rangers. But yeah, to me, it's really the relief pitching that's going to hurt them.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then so my next team, this is another team that I'd be shocked. I'm wondering if they're on your list. It's the Twins. And that's just because I remember their pitching earlier on, even though their hitting to me is what's going to hurt them because it's a very hit or miss lineup. Buxton hasn't played well. They really don't have Edward Julian, but that's the only guy really above 250 outside of Alex Kirilloff. To me, it's their hitting, but if they can get hot, that could help them. But I put them on this list because of their starting pitching. They got Sonny Gray, Bailey Ubers at 3.19, and then you also have Pablo Lopez, and he is currently, his ERA plus is 108. They're a team that I think could be sneaky, but it's really depending on can they just get some hits. And they also, I think, have some good relief pitching.
Yeah. The Twins did not make my list. You were wondering if they made it. They did not, unfortunately for them. A team that I think is on your list is the Toronto Blue Jays. We'll see if that's on your list or not. But the one thing that worries me about the Blue Jays is also injuries. We hope to see Bo Bichette back. I mean, as a Yankees fan, I guess I don't. But I don't like to see injuries derail someone's season. But Kevin Kiermaier having a great year back. Chapman, great season. And then obviously Gosman, who I'd right now have third in the AL Cy Young race. Barrios is having a great year as well. Yusei Kikuchi, a guy that kind of fell off last year, is having a resurgent season. After a 5.19 ERA, which around last year, he's having a 3.67 ERA this year. Former All-Star with the Mariners. And then they have great relief pitching. It hurts that Jordan Romano's out, and same thing with some of their other guys like Adam Sember, but having guys like Tim Meza and Trevor Richards in the bullpen really does help.
Yeah, the Blue Jays did not make my list. I'm not We'll just have to see if they prove me wrong. I'm not really sure. The next team I went after is they're 3.5 games out of the playoffs, out of the wild card right now. But I think it's the Angels, and I think Otani, if they can get hot and make it in the playoffs, maybe he just goes nuclear and some of the other guys start hitting well. Trout should be getting back soon, but they're a team that to me where I could see them going on this run by just relying on Otani. And I do think they have one other pitcher, but you do make some good points with the Blue Jays.
Yeah, the Angels don't make my list. This isn't basketball. I just don't see how Otani could lead a team through the playoffs by himself. Hopefully Trout can come back. I think that's the one chance is if Trout comes back and maybe CJ Cron plays extremely well or Patrick Sandoval. But my 10th team is Boston Red Sox. The Red Sox are a team that is surprisingly extremely good against above 500 teams. They are 41-34 against above 500 teams. That's extremely good. 7 games above 500 against above 500 teams is extremely good. To compare, Texas is 33-32 against the teams above 500. So Boston wins games against hard opponents. They have the second best record against teams above 500 in their division, only behind Baltimore. One thing I want to mention as well is every team in the AL Central has a record below 500 against the teams above 500, which is concerning. That would also be true of the AL West if it wasn't for Texas being 1 game above 500 in that instance. But that's another thing that I should have mentioned for San Francisco. They're 34-27 against the teams above 500, while a team like Philadelphia is 36-35. But Boston, Masataka Yoshida is a star player. He's hitting 305 still. Him and Josh Young are really going at it for AL Rookie of the Year. My vote is Yoshida, but either vote is fair. Yoshida's still hitting over 300 for this part of the season as a rookie is insane. He has a 125 OPS plus. He does struggle a little bit in the field and does play DH a fair amount of time. But Justin Turner, a guy with experience, 122 OPS plus, 837 OPS, 17 homers, 71 RBIs, which is a lot. He's playing amazing for Boston. And I like their relief pitching. Kenley Jansen has experience. John Schwarzenowski, Chris Martin, Brennan Bernardino. All those guys have ERAs below 3. And they're starting pitching with James Paxton, Cutter Crawford, which is an insanely good baseball name, and Brian Bello is solid. So I think this team does have a fair chance if they can get into it.
Yeah, that's fair. I did put the Twins on this list because I do think they're going to win the division, even though that's not a really good division. That's why I think they could sneak in there. But yeah, that's some really good point with the Red Sox. Their starting pitching looks good. I'm just curious on how it looks when it comes to the playoffs.
Yeah, I think having guys that are younger, we can either see them play really well or play really bad. I do think Paxton will be huge for this because he is a guy who has pitched in the playoffs before. So he's pitched in the ALCS and pitched amazing, by far our best pitcher in 2019 ALCS. So a guy having that experience on Boston as a pitcher, which is basically the only starter who has that amount of experience, will be big.
Yeah, and let us know what you think in the comments. Make sure to check out our Instagram, OO_podcast20. Same thing with Twitter, OO_podcast. Let us know what you think in the comments. We really appreciate you listening to Outsiders Opinions.